Hi, it's me. I've just made a coffee. I'm sitting down for a few minutes. Day whatever of being inside, self-distancing. It's a lovely day out there. The sky is blue. But no matter how nice it looks out there, we know these are very strange times. So I wanted to kind of have a little chat with you today. I mean, if you're familiar with me, you know that I like to keep things light. I like to laugh. I like to make you laugh. But watching the news this morning, it seems that across this country, there are still a lot of people who aren't following the recommendations being offered up by governments, by the health, the medical, chief medical officers, you kind of want to think that everybody's going to do the right thing. That's what we all are hoping. And I kind of understand. I mean, I know where some of this is coming from. We've all had moments where we don't like being told what to do, being lectured, by our parents, by bosses, by the man. And we've all had moments too where we're not going to believe that flame is going to burn us unless we shove our finger into it. But this is a moment where there is a flame racing around the world, and literally and metaphorically. You don't want to stick your finger into this thing. So I realized today that I've had a tiny little bit of experience in this as far as where this thing can go and end up. And if you're somebody who is dismissing this, brushing it off, not a big deal, I'm young, not going to affect me, or I'm healthy, I just want to tell you a little story. I'm going to keep it as short as possible because I know attention spans and all of that. And I'd like you to think about two things. I've got 2 points that I want to make with this. So, a little over 3 years ago, my husband ended up in the emergency room. This was after having been on chemotherapy for 6 months. And he was finished it by then. We thought we were in the all clear. But he ended up one night with a dry cough when he was breathing in, which was all new. So anyway, got him to the ER. And of course it was presenting as pneumonia. Your lungs are inflamed now. Your lungs are on fire. Literally. And so the first thing they start to look for is viral pneumonia. They start trying to track down a virus. That's what we are dealing with today, a virus. And in his case, in the end, everybody agreed that it wasn't a virus. It was a very sad and serious, rare side effect of one of the chemo drugs he was on. So at that time, he was in ICU for 6 days, and he was in hospital total 16 days. But initially, when we got to the hospital, I felt horrible when they talked about this being a bug, because I was worried that I had done something, that I hadn't washed my hands enough, that I somehow brought something into the house that he had got. And he came home after that and was home for 6 weeks, and then it all started to fire up again. And I mean, he was not healthy in those 6 weeks. And so we were trying to, build him back up, and we thought we were going to be okay, but it was going to take a lot of work. But the same thing started to happen. He ended up back at the ER. Again, they start hunting down a virus. And once again, I felt responsible because now he was in worse condition, but I'm going in and out, and I'm now worried that again I have done something. But in the end, once again, the conclusion was this was due to chemo. So the first point I want to make is, if you're somebody who is not taking this seriously, and you can't get your head around doing something for the world or the city or your province or your state or whoever's going to see this, if you bring it into your own house, are you prepared to do anything for the people around you, the people that you love? Because if you did bring something in and it became serious, are you emotionally prepared for feeling responsible for that? I don't think anybody is. So that's the first point. The second thing is, I'm worried that people are thinking that maybe, because we're talking so much about ventilators, and ventilators are needed everywhere. If you don't know anything about a ventilator, it's possible you think that the ventilator is the answer. The ventilator will get somebody through something. This will save people, and in some cases it will. But a ventilator is a last resort. And the second time my husband went into hospital, after 3 days in the ER, the ventilator was brought up, that his best shot was to be intubated. And that's what happens. When you're put on a ventilator, you're intubated. So here's what that means, because I want you to be clear about what a ventilator is. You see people in videos on the news, people in hospitals with oxygen masks on. If you think that's a ventilator, that is not a ventilator. That's an oxygen mask, pumping oxygen into you. A ventilator is a very different thing, because your lungs will have got to a point where if you're not given mechanical assistance, you are going to die. So they put you on a ventilator, not to help you to breathe for you, to give your lungs a break. I'm not an expert in any of this. I am not a medical expert. I didn't even play one in a commercial. I'm just, having been through this, having firsthand experience what this all means. And so when somebody, here's another thing that you have to know. To be put on a ventilator, people ask me with Bob, they said, well, was he awake? No. When you're on a ventilator, you're not awake. You have to be placed in a medically induced coma to be put on a ventilator, because you've got to have a tube put down your windpipe down to almost at your lungs to put the air in. Now, you can't have that done when you're awake. So you are put into a coma. And when the doctor comes up to you and says the best shot is to be intubated, the second after he says that, I think what you will realize, which is what I realized, is at that moment, this moment, before this happens, you have to say whatever you're going to say to that person, because you do not know whether they are going to come out of it, whether they can be extubated, which is to get it out. And that's no picnic either. And then you will sit by a bed and you'll talk to this person for, as I did, for 3 weeks, and other members of his family for 3 weeks. And you'll talk and you'll say, I'm here. You'll try to convince this body to heal itself and come back. And you'll read letters from people and emails, and you will play music, and I took crystals in, and didn't work. So I don't want anybody to look at these ventilators and think, well, there's the answer. As long as you got ventilators, they need ventilators, believe me. But to go through that, to see somebody you love, know that they're terrified. And the other point, too, is that I got to sit next to his bed and talk to him for 3 weeks. But the way things are now, if you have it, if that person has it, you won't be able to sit next to that bed. So I want you to think about these things before you have a moment of thought. A moment where you think this is not serious. For some people, it won't be serious. Do you want to take that chance with your family? It's got to be about, if that's all you can think about is your family. I just want you to imagine these things that you might have to deal with people that you love. We can all get through this. It won't always be like this. But we all have to do our part. Nobody wants to go through this. Nobody wants to see somebody that they love go through some horrible intervention to try to keep them alive. So I'm going to finish my coffee. We will all laugh again sooner than you think. So if you know somebody who needs to hear this, I'm just asking you to pass it along. Strength, everybody.